Rob, KB5PBM, one of our TechNet members, helping us with the audio in the Zoom tonight. It's being recorded and it'll also be posted on Zoom. Thanks to Sean and 5LNK for helping us get the TechNet recorded and up on YouTube and Zoom. All Zoom participants can post questions, conversations, and discussions inside the Zoom chat via text, where other subject matter experts can assist while the net is simultaneously taking place over the RF. Once the TechNet is completed, all mics will be unmuted. Finally, you can follow tonight's presentation by Thomas, KI50MW. You can either do it on Zoom or you can download it. We send it via email this weekend to members, or you can go to technet.crhrc.org. That's technet.crhrc.org and download the presentation. So you've got a lot of ways to check into the night's net and get the presentation. Again, my name is Bill, and my call is K5LK. I will be the TechNet control operator for our monthly TechNet session number 6. We welcome everybody. Tonight, Thomas will be presenting a presentation regarding HF digital operations. After his presentation is concluded, the net controller will ask if anyone has questions or comments regarding the specific topic. We just ask you to provide your call sign, and the net control will call on you for you to present your question. We also have options to, if you're in the Zoom chat, the same thing. Just say, hey, I got a question, and put it in there, and Darren will be sure, and I will be looking at it as well, that we get that handled. Once all the questions, the presentation have been addressed, then the net control operator will open the net for any general tech questions related to amateur radio. And finally tonight, after the RF net is over, we will stay around on Zoom for general rag chew. So I think we've got a great opportunity here for participation in the TechNet, and we welcome everyone. Okay, Thomas, going to throw it over to you. KI50MW, K5LK, and TechNet number 6. Welcome, sir. Look forward to the discussion.
Well, thank you, Bill. This is KI50MW with Crossroads Ham Radio Club's TechNet number 6. Like you said, we will be discussing digital HF operations with a focus on FT8. And just for an intro, let me let it drop real quick and I'll go into the intro. Okay, FT8 and other digital modes have become a popular way for amateur radio operators to easily make global contacts with modest equipment. Even with a compromised antenna, weak signals can be pulled from the noise by the computer's sensitive ears. In tonight's TechNet, we'll discuss the hardware and software requirements for running digital modes, as well as some software options that are helpful for making the most of your precious radio time. Finally, we'll discuss how exactly to run FT8 in particular, and some techniques for getting that weak DX to come back to you. As a quick intro, how exactly can we send digital information using a single sideband radio transceiver? What exactly does an FT8 transmission consist of? Well, each transmission is a 77-bit block that is sufficient for 13 characters of text. These data blocks are transmitted in 15-second intervals. For the perfectionists, that's 12.64 seconds of transmission time and 2.36 seconds of decode time. The 77 bits are encoded on a carrier frequency by periodically shifting the carrier between several discrete frequencies. This modulation type is aptly named FSK, or frequency shift keying. I'm going to let it drop. Now that we know a little about what it is, we'll take a look at the basic requirements to run FT8 and similar modes. Assuming first you'll need an amateur radio license and a working radio setup, including a single sideband transceiver, power supply, antenna, feed line, etc. You'll also need a computer with either a sound card or available USB ports. It will need the ability to run the required software, which is called JTX, and the requirements for running the software are as follows. The operating system, Windows 7 or later, Mac OS 10.3 or later, or Linux. We'll also need a 1.5 gigahertz or faster CPU and at least 200 megabytes of available disk space. Of course, bigger is always better, right? And also a monitor with at least 1024 by 780 resolution. And I'll let it drop. And for anyone following along, we're on the third slide now, the audio routing examples. Once the computer and radio are in order, we'll need to sort out how to get the audio signals between them in both directions and also how to control the radio's PTT and frequency. This can be as simple as plugging in a USB cable if your radio is fairly modern. With older rigs, you may have to come up with another solution. It's possible, for example, to homebrew some audio cables that connect the radio to the computer's sound card and set up the radio for Vox operation. This method can work, but you will likely have difficulty keeping your audio signals, their levels where they need to be. You'll also need a way to control the radio's frequency from the computer via CAT or computer-aided transceiver controls. Even many older rigs have a serial port for this purpose, and if this is your case, make sure the computer also has an available serial port, or you will also need a serial to USB adapter. For an easier way to connect older radios that even has convenient level controls, something like a Tigertronics Signal Link USB interface is a great option. This device connects the computer via USB and provides a simple one-cable audio interface to the radio. If your radio does not have an internal sound card, a device like this is the recommended option. Although a separate CAT control solution will be needed. A link to Tigertronics will be in the PDF file that was emailed previously. If you have a newer rig with a built-in sound card, you need only install your radio's drivers for the operating system you're using and plug in the USB cable. Since the hardware configuration varies greatly depending on the radio and connection method, I can't go into further detail now, but if there are questions about your particular setup, ask them after the presentation and we'll see if we can find a way to get an answer for you. And I'll let it drop. And if you're following along, I'm on the fourth slide, required software. WSJTX is the main software program that makes modes like FT8 work. As such, it's the first required program you'll need to install. The following description is taken directly from the WSJTX user guide, which is also linked in the emailed PDF. Quote, WSJTX is a computer program designed to facilitate basic amateur radio communication using very weak signals. The first four letters in the program name stand for Weak Signal Communication by K1JT, while the suffix -X indicates that WSJTX started as an extended branch of an earlier program, WJST, first released in 2001. In short, WSJTX listens to the received audio from the radio, decodes text sent from all the stations that were heard, and displays the text as received on the screen. Then you can choose a station to call, and the software will generate the appropriate reply and transmit the tones via the radio. We'll talk about this in more detail in the operations section. I'm going to let it drop. The link to download WSJTX is in the emailed PDF. And the next required program is needed to keep your computer's time synchronized with an internet-based time server. I would put that in air quotes, but you probably can't see that because technically you can set your computer's time manually. In fact, you may still have to if running portable operations with no internet access. But for normal operations, a network time sync program will save a lot of headaches. There are many options to choose for this application. I personally use NetTime from www.timesynctool.com. The link is in the PDF. But you can use any application you like that can accurately sync the time for you. Once the time is correct, WSJTX is really all you need to start making contacts. I'm going to let it drop. And I'm on the optional software slide now. The problem with WSJTX alone is that you won't know anything about the stations that are sending messages, except their call sign and how strong their signal is. This makes it difficult to choose which station you might want to work. That brings me to the first optional program, JT Alert. You can find JT Alert at hamapps.com/JT Alert, again linked in the PDF. JT Alert looks at the decoded text from WSJTX and using the internet looks up the call sign information for the currently active stations. It then displays states, countries, and grid squares in an easy to parse format. JT Alert can also be configured to generate audible alerts when a wanted station is detected, making it very easy to chase all those states of that DXCC. And let it drop. One other optional program I'd like to mention is called Grid Tracker. Grid Tracker is found at gridtracker.org, also linked in the PDF. This software also has alert functionality like JT Alert, and also has a very customizable map display. Things like currently active stations and previously worked stations and needed states and DX entities can be displayed on the map. And like JT Alert, Grid Tracker can also be configured to automatically upload your log to many popular online log databases, for instance, QRZ, Logbook of the World, or EQSL, and others. All of the software discussed here so far can keep a log on your computer as well to upload later if you do not have internet access. Setting up all of these programs with all of their features is a little beyond the scope of the TechNet, but if you have specific questions regarding advanced configuration, get in touch and I'll try my best to help. And FYI, the basic functionality of JT Alert will immediately just work if your WS-JTX installation options are left to their defaults. So it should be easy to get up and running. As before, save any questions for the end and we'll try to get an answer for you. You'll let it drop. And this is KI5OMW with the Crossroads Ham Radio Club's monthly TechNet. Tonight we're talking about running digital modes on HF, and WS-JTX configuration is up next. And moving to the WS-JTX configuration slide, the general. Once you get WS-JTX installed, there will be some configuration to do depending on your hardware setup. Here I'll quickly go over a basic setup, and you can follow along with the pictures in the presentation PDF. In the settings window, starting with the General tab, we see a place to enter your station details at the top. Here's where you'll enter your call sign, Maidenhead Grid Square, and IARU region. Filling out these fields correctly will allow the program to generate standard messages during a QSO. Below the station details, there are some options for display and behavior, and these options are preferences that can be left alone or changed to suit your specific operating needs. I'll let it drop. And to the next slide, the radio tab in general settings, this one most commonly causes trouble and is very specific to your individual setup. If you're running a modern radio, you should be able to find it in the drop-down menu labeled Rig at the top. If it isn't there, you may have to refer to the WS-JTX support page to find if you can substitute another radio to get it working with yours. Most of the rest of this page refers to radio-specific settings for CAT controls and PTT method. Depending on your chosen setup, you may need to refer to your radio's manual for specifics. The mode section will usually be USB for upper sideband, not universal serial bus. And on the bottom right, the split operation section, Fake It is likely the best choice. This option allows the software to change the radio's frequency to shift up or down in the 3 kilohertz sideband without changing the modulated pitches, keeping the audio in an efficient range. The rig option does the same thing, except puts the radio in split mode and varies the frequency of VFOB to achieve the same effect. The none option under split does not change the radio frequency, and the part of the spectrum in the sideband where your data will be heard is solely controlled by the pitch of the audio from the computer. Hopefully this will be a little clearer when we look at the waterfall in just a bit. I'm going to let it drop. Moving on to the next slide, the audio configuration tab, the last settings tab that we care about. And at the top, we'll see the input and output from the sound card is chosen. This will depend again on your setup. These can be your computer's sound device or USB sound device built into the radio or some other external audio device. Your particular hardware setup will determine the choice here. It's important to note that the output must be different from the output chosen for your computer sounds. If not, any notification your computer makes will get transmitted right along with your digital messages, and that's no good. If you manage to get that much set up correctly, you should be able to start operating any of the digital modes supported by WS-JTX. In the following operating examples, I'll be showing details related to running FT8 specifically. These examples are equally valid for the other modes as well. Let me let it drop. The next slide is the waterfall. I'm choosing to begin with the waterfall because I think the items in the main window will make more sense if you understand this first. As you may recall, the upper sideband consists of 3 kilohertz above the center frequency. That 3 kilohertz sideband is shown on the WSJTX waterfall window. Each FT8 transmission is 50 hertz wide and lasts for 15 seconds, as noted earlier. On the waterfall, you can see each station's transmission as a rectangular block that is 50 hertz wide and 15 seconds tall. The more red the block, the stronger the signal from that station. At the top, you'll notice a red and green bracket symbol. These represent our TX and RX locations in the sideband. It's desirable to listen with RX with the green bracket where your target is, but transmit the red bracket in a clear spot on the waterfall with no other traffic. You can move the TX and RX brackets around by clicking with the mouse, typing the exact frequency, or by initiating a contact with another station, as we'll see in the next section. Let me let it drop. Now on to the next slide, WSJTX, the main window. Here we see the main window. For the moment, we'll focus on the upper left portion and make sense of what's there. First, this section is labeled band activity, and shown here is all of the decoded messages on the entirety of the sideband. This window fills up and overflows quite quickly, so its usefulness can be limited. But on the right side, we only see the decoded messages at the location of the green bracket we saw on the waterfall slide earlier. This section is aptly named RX frequency. Looking at the top of either of these sections, you'll notice column labels UTC, dB, frequency, and message. These define the data in the columns as the time in UTC, the signal strength in dB, the time difference, frequency in hertz, and the center frequency. The frequency in hertz above the center frequency, sorry. We got to make sense here. And the text of the message is last. Note the time difference values in red. If you look at the left window there, about halfway down, you'll see one in red under the DT column. Stand by 1 second. Let me let it drop. Okay, I lost my place. The time difference values in red, these are decodes that are nearly too far mistimed to be decoded. This is the reason for running the NetTime program, to ensure the computer's time is as accurate as possible. The larger the absolute value of the time difference, the more difference there is between that station's time and your time. And if that difference is too great, you won't be able to decode the data. And a side note about the colors, the decoded messages can be color-coded to make certain message types easier to find. By default, stations calling CQ are in green, your own transmissions are in yellow, and stations that are calling you directly will be highlighted in red. These colors can be fully customized to suit your needs. And let me let it drop. And next slide, the WSJTX that you need to know to get operating. Starting with the tune button at the top right, this button causes the radio to transmit a steady tone until you tell it to stop by pressing tune a second time. This is useful for setting your audio levels to the best signal input. You would, for example, signal output, actually. You would, for example, press tune and watch your radio's ALC meter, then adjust the power slider on the far right to get the meter to read optimally according to the radio's manual. Some radios use the ALC meter differently from others, so always check your radio's manual. Once the meter is reading the optimal value, press the tune button again to stop transmitting, and now you know your audio output is within a safe range for your radio. And a side note, if at any time the radio is transmitting when you don't want it to, simply click Halt TX, and it will immediately stop. On the other side of this window, far left now, there's an audio input meter. This is the audio coming from the radio into the computer. The radio's RF gain knob can be adjusted, or the input level in the computer's audio mixer can also be used. Ideally, this meter should be in the 35 to 70 dB range. Remember the green and red brackets from the waterfall. Besides clicking with the mouse, they can be moved by adjusting the TX and RX values at the center of this window. By default, double-clicking a message, like a station calling CQ, for example, will move your TX and RX frequency to that station's location in the spectrum. To stop this behavior and keep your TX frequency where you set it, check the box Hold TX Frequency. Let it drop. And now to the messages. Dominating the right half of this window is the Messages section. If you ever click on a station's message to initiate a contact, the standard messages in this area will automatically populate with their call sign and signal report. You almost never need to change these messages except in special cases. For instance, to call CQ yourself, click the radio button near the bottom, near TX6, to select the CQ message as the next message to transmit. Make sure the red TX bracket is in an empty part of the waterfall and click Enable TX. The next time your 15-second time slot comes around, you will transmit calling CQ. When a station comes back to you, the program will cycle through the standard messages until the QSO is complete. Once the QSO is started, you no longer need to intervene. Just wait for the 73. And speaking of your time slot, there are 2 time slots available. If you click on another station's message, you will automatically be set to the opposite time slot from them. But if you're calling CQ, you can choose which time slot you want to use by checking or unchecking the TX even box near the top, just to the right of the big frequency display. Even time slots begin at the 0 and 30 seconds of each minute, while the odds start at 15 and 45 seconds. And I'll let it drop. And now we're on to the log confirmation slide. After 73s are exchanged, well, actually, as soon as you begin sending your 73 message, a confirmation window will pop up asking you to confirm and log the QSO. If you click OK, the entry will be made in the log according to your settings. By default, the ADIF file is stored in the WS-JTX directory. You can, of course, change this path in settings if you wish. If you'd like to make a comment or add more information to the log entry before confirming, you can with this window. You can also click the retain checkboxes to always add that same comment for every entry if you wish. And last slide, this is a license to learn, as they like to say. This covers the basics of running digital modes with WS-JTX, but there's a lot more under the hood if you really want to dig into it. I think the Tech Net format doesn't allow for much more in-depth study of the topic, but I'm available to answer questions both now on air or in Zoom or later by other means. I feel like everyone should give these modes a try, and I'll help you get there if I can. And we'll move to the last slide. The last slide on the PDF has the links to all the software referenced in the presentation, and that concludes my prepared material. I'll give it back to you now, Bill, to lead the rest of the post-discussion, and I'd like to thank everybody for your attention. Back to you, Bill. This has been KI5OMW, back to Net Control.
Good presentation, Thomas.
Awesome, Thomas. This is K5LK, Bill, on the W5LCR repeater system tonight with our Crossroads Ham Radio Club monthly Tech Net. Tonight's Tech Net number 6. We'd like to give a big thanks to Thomas, KI5OMW, for that great presentation. At this time, we're going to open the net for any tech questions or comments specific to HF digital operations. We'll then take a few call signs at a time and then call on each of you for your questions or comments. Anyone with questions or comments recording the presentation, please give your call sign followed by your name slowly and phonetically. This is K5LK Net Control. All right, not anybody bashful here now. A lot of good information here by Thomas. Let's see if we can get the conversation going. Anybody like to give any comments or questions about his HF digital operations topic tonight? Please come now with your call sign phonetically and your name.
W5BSA with a question.
So I know you'd come through for us. Way to go, sir. Good evening. Go ahead.
Hey, Thomas, I see you got at the top of your page you have on the Zoom channel right now, so you got Signal Link. So I've got a Signal Link box that's, man, it's about 3 or 4 years old. So if I dig it out what do I need in the way of software to use with the Signal Link to get it going? What would you recommend?
KI5OMW here. Joe, really, I think you would just need the device drivers for the signal link box, and then the cable to go from the box to your radio, and that's it. No other special software. That box is just going to give you audio ins and outs that you can connect to your radio, and then you have some level controls on the front of the box, if I remember what it looks like, right? So when you plug it into your computer, it should just show up as an audio device, and that's it. So just the device drivers, and no other software as far as I know.
Okay, great, thank you.
And another point with that's not the only device. There's some others. I can't think of what they're called right off the top of my head, but basically anything that gives you a sound card interface between your radio and your PC. I know there's a couple of manufacturers that make some different things. That's just one that I'd heard of.
Thomas, I think you double with Phil. I think he's got a comment here. W5 CPO, go ahead. Good evening, sir.
It's W5 CPO. The big thing when you're using a signal link or the rig blaster is when you get to your COM ports. If you got the wrong COM port, you need to look for it. Device drivers, I think, or I'd have to turn my computer on to look. But if you got the wrong COM port going, you got to go in there and look for it and find the right COM port, and then turn that COM port on. It'll work pretty good at that point.
Hey, I'll make a comment also to that, Bill, if I can.
Yes, sir.
KI50MW again. That same tip will apply to a modern radio as well. I'm currently using a FTDX10, and the same thing. I plug it into a USB port, and I get two COM ports. And I think it comes up as 5 and 6 because I had another radio that stole 3 and 4. So you have to make sure the COM port numbers that whatever your device creates, those are the ones you're using. And I still got the slides pulled up here. If I back up a little bit to the JTX Configuration audio slide, see the input and output, they're USB audio codec and USB audio codec, both of them. One's a line and one speakers. That's my radio. And you never know what they're going to be called. It's just whatever Windows thinks it is what it's going to put in there. And if you go to Device Manager, I know on a Windows machine, if you hit the Windows key and X, it'll bring up a menu and you can choose Device Manager. You can find your COM ports in there and try to figure out which one's which.
KJ5ADO with a comment.
Go ahead, Brenda. This is K5LK with the monthly Tech Net number 6 on Crossroads. Go ahead, Brenda.
Well, I'm trying to set up a digi-rig right now on a radio, and yeah, I'm kind of struggling through that as well. This may be common knowledge already, but if you're not sure what your COM port is, you can unplug it while you have the device manager open. It'll disappear, and then when you plug it back in again, it'll show up, and it tells you exactly which COM port it is that device is using. KJ5ADO.
Okay, thank you for that, Brenda. Thomas, any comments to Brenda there?
None, except that's a pretty good idea. If you don't know which one it is and you unplug it and it disappears, now you know. You will, my radio, for example, does make 2 of them, though. So 2 of them will disappear, and you still have to get them right in the JTX configuration. If you have them backwards, it won't work right. But I found that trial and error is your friend there. Try one way, and if it's not correct, just swap them.
All righty, thank you, Thomas. Again, this is K5LK. We're net control for the monthly Tech Net number 6 tonight for the Crossroads Ham Radio Club. Let's see, we got any more questions or comments on the presentation for Thomas? Please come now with your call sign phonetically and your name, please.
W5 CPO, another comment.
Go ahead, Phil.
W5 CPO. Thomas, don't you have to have a certain driver installed?
Yes, Phil, that's correct. KI50MW again. For my radio, for example, I had to go to the Yaesu's website and find the radio and download a driver for it. It happened to be the same driver for some of their other radios. So, for example, I happen to know the 991 and the DX10 use the same driver. But whatever audio system you're using, if it's your PC sound card or some external box like the Signal Link or what Brenda said she's using that I forgot the name of already, or your radio, you will need to get drivers for it, for sure.
That answer your question, Phil?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there in case anybody was wondering about that. Also, this program looks sort of difficult, but it's not. You start playing with it, and it gets pretty easy real quick. The biggest thing is getting the computer to talk to the radio and vice versa. Once you get that working, the software part of it works. I mean, it's just start punching buttons, and you can't make a mistake. You're either going to get out or you ain't.
Okay, thank you, Phil, and thank you, Thomas. Thomas, I'm going to throw out a couple of questions for you, if you don't mind here. Kind of general questions. We're seeing here on Crossroads, a lot of new technicians that are getting their licenses and getting into the hobby. Any words of advice on a newly licensed tech, how they can get into digital modes you would recommend?
Sure, Bill. KI5OMW again. A technician class licensee has full digital privileges on 10 meters and 6 meters, and really everything up from there. I'm looking at my band plan here. Even 1.25 meters, 70 centimeters, everything above 10, they have full digital privileges. So with a single sideband capable radio that can transmit on 10 meters and 6 meters in particular, and Phil will get mad at me if I don't mention 2 meters. They're good to go. The basic setup, like I was talking about here with that radio, they'll be able to work the world right now on 10 meters especially. So even with the technician license, I urge you to get into it. It's a lot of fun, and all you need is a radio that can do sideband on 10 meters and a computer.
Gotcha. Thank you, Thomas. So we had a comment by Brian in the chat that says, at least what's nice about Signal Link, it gives you physical buttons to adjust for volume level and for squelch tail. Other sound card interfaces, you may have to use your MS Windows settings for the volume out levels.
Bill, that's absolutely correct, and it's one of the reasons why I picked that one. It's got the convenient knobs right on the front of it for your audio levels. Otherwise, you may be digging around in Windows for your sound mixer or your RF gain on your radio or whatever, but the Signal Link's got it right there for you.
Got it. Okay. Another question or comment is kind of a plug for the Tech Net here. Thomas, field operations with HF Digital, such as FT8. Can you comment on that? And then maybe Sean or Darren can talk to this, what we got coming up with POTA and Field Day, their operations to see it in action, I would assume. So over to you, Thomas. Go ahead.
Well, field operations is actually my first introduction to FT8 was at the first Crossroads Ham Radio Club's Field Day I attended, and I think Chris had his rig out there and was running FT8, and between him and Rick, they kind of showed me the ropes, and I ran with it from there. So it's great for that kind of operation. POTA, sure, it's a weak signal mode, so if you're out there with a compromised antenna, maybe a ham stick or an end-fed half wave thrown together or something, you're still going to get out and you're still going to be able to hear other stations because that's what it's designed to do. The only thing you might miss is if you're using the program to set your time, you may have to do that manually because you may or may not have the internet if you're out in a remote location. And same with something like JT Alert. It may not be able to pull the call sign information from the internet if you don't have network access. But other than that, it's still a great mode to use portable.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. This is K5LK with Crossroads Monthly Tech Net number 6. Thomas, we got a question in the chat from WB5BCO. What starter radios would you recommend for people getting into ham and want to do FT8 or other similar digital modes? Any thoughts? Or anybody on the net? But you take it first, Thomas.
Well, that's a good question. KF5OMW here. I would anything with an internal sound card, I think, would be what you're going to want to be after. Something with a USB port that it's more plug and play if you're just getting started. My first radio was a FT950, and it didn't have any of that, and I had to homemake some cables and just sort of make it work. And later when I got, I think it was my 991 was the first radio I had with an internal sound card, and you just plug the USB port in, you're off to the races. It's so much easier. So something like that, the 991, like I said, is a good one. Or the 7300 if you're one of those ICOM guys, or anything that, man, if you can get an HF rig, anything that you can afford and get on the air with it is good enough. But if it's got an internal sound card and that USB port, you're going to be a lot happier because it's going to be just easier to set up.
Gotcha. Good point. Thank you, Thomas. Okay, any other questions or comments on the topic tonight, HF digital operations? We'd love to have them. Come now with your call sign and your name, please, phonetically.
This is November 5 Lima November Kilo. Thomas, I got a question for you. I do operate FT8 here at home, but I have never taken it out to the park to try activating the park with that mode. I'm not sure what I would need to do. Obviously you need to transmit your park designator. How would I go about doing that?
Well, it's KI5OMW again. You actually don't have to. There's no need to tell the hunters what your park designation is. They don't need to know. It's not part of the exchange. It can be when you're operating voice. It's very common. You tell them what park you're at, but you don't have to. And when you're operating parks on the air on FT8, you just leave that out. You just exchange call signs, signal reports, and grid squares. Okay, very good. And then for pulling out your log, you would want to keep a separate log from, I'm not sure if you can. I'm sure you can keep separate logs, but how would you go about doing that? Just rename it or something? Yeah, I use WSJTX to keep the log when I do a POTA activation, and in the settings you can point it to another directory on your computer and make a new log. So that's what I do. I usually drop it on the desktop so it's easy to find, and point the program in settings to that log and run my POTA activation, and then go back to my original log when I get back home. Okay, roger that. Well, great presentation, Thomas. I really appreciate a lot of good information in there. This is then 5LNK. Back to net control.
Thank you, Sean. I double with you there for a second. I apologize. Okay, this is K5LNK. I got your call, John. K5LK net control for the Crossroads Ham Radio Club, Tech Net number 6. One more time, anybody like to provide a comment for Thomas, any feedback, ask a question, please come now with your call sign phonetically.
This is KI5HVF.
Okay, I believe we got KI5HVF, and I believe, was that W5ITC also in there?
Yes, sir. Let Darren go, and then I'll follow.
Roger, will do. Turn it over to Darren, then Darren to Bill.
Yeah, Thomas, appreciate you putting that presentation together. It was very informative, and I may have missed it. I was kind of busy doing some stuff over here. But anyway, what power level do you run when you do an FT8? And it's kind of a twofold question. So that one, and then sometimes I actually see like antennas listed as 100 watts for voice or sideband, but 50 watts for FT8. Is there a reason for that you know of? KI5HVF, back to net.
Yeah, Darren, thanks for that question. KI5OMW again. That's because of the duty cycle of the mode. Typically, if you have a balun on your antenna, you're going to want double the power that you're running. And same with an antenna tuner. If you have I have a tuner on my setup that it says right there in the manual, it's 200 watts voice and 100 watts digital. And that's why the duty cycle is so much greater. You're transmitting at a high power for so much longer. So keep that in mind if you're buying anything like a tuner or a new balun or something like that. If you're going to run the digital modes, it's going to have to be basically double rated.
All right. Appreciate it. KI5HVF, back to net control.
All right, good comment. Over to you, Mr. ITZ. Go ahead. K5LK Tech Net number 6.
W5ITZ and the mobile. Thanks, Mr. Bill. Yeah, Thomas, I've seen that WSJT is capable of doing several different digital modes. Can you talk a little bit about the difference in the modes, maybe specifically one called FT4?
Yeah, sure, Bill. Might pull up my WSJTX here if I can get to it. Well, maybe I can't. Some of the other modes, there's JT65, I think, is one that it's really slow compared to FT8. It's the transmission cycles are 60 seconds instead of 15. And FT4 is similar, but the other way. It's faster than FT8, where your transmissions are 7.5 seconds instead of 15. And all those other modes have their own frequency plan it's built into the software. If you choose that mode, it'll put you on the right frequency automatically. And it'll start doing its thing, just like with FT8. It's pretty automatic, WSJT is. But yeah, specifically your question, FT4 is almost exactly the same thing as FT8, but twice as fast.
Oh, very good. So if you get bored running FT8, try FT4 and stay a little bit busier is what it sounds like. Thanks, Thomas. W5ITZ, back to net control.
Thank you, gentlemen, and thanks, Thomas, for the presentation. I think we're probably going to cut this portion of the net down. Thomas, how would you, great presentation. People that this recording will be on YouTube here probably in the next week. Also, the presentation is on the Crossroads Ham Radio Club. Just look for CRHRC.org and go to TechNet. Sean, N5LNK's already got it up there. Thomas, somebody would like to reach you for more questions or get with you a little bit. I said you're good in QRZ. You just want to kind of let us know the best way you'd like people to get with you.
Yeah, sure, Bill. KI50MW. I am good on QRZ, and that will basically point you to my email address that is my call sign, KI50MW@gmail.com. And I sometimes don't check it every day, but at least every couple of days I check it. So, send me a message in there, and I'll get back to you. And we'll, if you have any issues, we'll try to sort it out.
Awesome. Thanks again, Thomas. Well done presentation. Appreciate all your time and your passion for digital ham radio. It's really cool. Look forward to seeing you coming up here at Field Day. Once again, that's where I met you last year at the Field Day, and you're running that, so that's great. Okay. Before we move on to the general Q&A session, tech session, got a special announcement about a new repeater that came onto the Crossroads Ham Radio Club. So, Bill, I want to turn it over to you for the great news. W5ITT, K5LK. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, well, thanks, Mr. Bill. And Thomas, great job on the presentation. Yeah, guys, if you haven't checked your email, or if you're not on the email membership list, you might want to go ahead and sign up for that, and you'll get this great news firsthand in your inbox. But we sent out an exciting email today. We are very excited to announce that we've added another repeater to the Crossroads Ham Radio Club linked system. Another member-owned repeater in the greater Houston area. Very wide area coverage. It covers all the way north of Houston up to the Woodlands, and south of Houston down to Clear Lake from one repeater. UHF repeater frequency is 443.725. Repeating 443.725. The standard positive 5 megahertz offset on UHF, and it's running a PL tone of 110.9. 110.9 PL tone. The repeater is on the air and linked into the system. So get that programmed into your radios. And if you are testing, we ask that you please use your call sign when you're testing instead of just kerchunking, and give somebody an opportunity to give you a signal report back. So once again, guys, 443.725, positive 5 megahertz offset with a 110.9 PL tone. And we're excited to add that one to the list of linked repeaters as a member-owned repeater. W5ITZ, back to net control.
Thank you, Bill, for that exciting information, a new addition to the W5LCR link repeater system. Does anyone have any comments or questions for Bill on the new repeater? Okay, nothing heard. Yeah, I programmed it tonight as soon as I got home, and man, I'm almost, between Katy and Brookshire out here, long way from downtown Houston, and I'm getting it full scale out here, so that's mighty remarkable. Look forward to talking to people on it. Okay, this is K5LK Net Control for this month's edition of the Tech Net for Crossroads Ham Radio Club. We're going to open the session up to now to any questions and around any topic related to amateur radio. We'll take a few call signs at a time. Just ask that you give your call and your name, your call phonetically, please. But any tech-related question that you'd like to throw out, please do so now. Oh, don't be bashful. Somebody got to throw out something that they're working on they'd like to throw out to the group or just want to know about a different part of our hobby. Please come now.
This is Kilo Juliet 5, Charlie Mike Foxtrot, Taylor.
There we go. Is it KJ5CMF, Charlie Mike Foxtrot, Taylor, I believe? You're a little scratchy. Go ahead with your question, sir.
Like Jack. Question here, I didn't get a chance to get a comment in. What I've been working on a lot. But I've been using JS8 call, which is a variation of it. And
Taylor, unfortunately, I believe we only got maybe 20% of that. Any way you can find another location or increase your power, you're just not holding the repeater.
Just wanted to hop in here, get on the log. And
Roger, thank you, Taylor. We got you in. Brenda is KJ5 Charlie Mike Foxtrot. I believe you got him into the log there. I believe that's correct. Thank you very much. Again, this is K5LK. Any questions or comments to general amateur radio topic? Please come now. Well, nothing heard. Sean, you still around with us? Or Darren? Darren, we'll throw it over to you about the next POTA activation. You mind promoting that a little bit? It'd be a good time to get active in the hobby. We had a good turnout there a couple of Saturdays ago at Sealy. Go ahead, Darren.
Thank you, Bill. This is KI5HVF. Yeah, I think we had, 26, 27 people out there throughout the day. So I made it out there myself. Fortunately, wasn't able to operate. But our next event is June 1st at Brazos Bend State Park. That is a Saturday. And we typically start about 10 o'clock and run till about 5 o'clock. Last time Phil was gracious enough, W5CPO, to grill some hot dogs, so we had a good time out there, a good turnout. I don't remember how many different stations, at least 4 or 5 different stations running. We do have bandpass filters, so if somebody wants to bring a rig out and get set up, we can surely make that happen. Be a good time to put this presentation here to use and set it up in the field and get your FT8 going out there as well. So maybe get you a fix. But yeah, we really it's really an exciting part of the hobby, the hunters and the activations. A lot to learn about it. Helps with ecoms and stuff when power's out and knowing how to set up without it. So a lot of good information, a lot of good people, and good times. So appreciate that plug there, Bill. KI5HVF, back to net.
Thank you, Mr. Darren. Yeah, that was my first POTA event, much less activation. I learned a lot. Really appreciate you, Brenda, everybody who was out there, Sean, Phil. That was just awesome. Okay, one more time. Any amateur-related tech questions or comments for the group before we close the net down? All righty, nothing heard. Before closing the net, we got to give Brenda a little chance here to put some more folks into the log. So we want to get everybody an opportunity to get checked in. If you haven't already checked in through the pre-check-in before the net, Zoom or NetLogger, now is your opportunity to do so. To get checked in, all you got to do is give us your call sign phonetically, slowly, twice, and your name and location. Please come now.
Kilo India 5, Yankee
November
Delta
0,
Victor.
leaving uniform
Kilo
Victor.
India 5, Yankee
November
Delta
0,
Victor.
leaving uniform Victor. David in Houston.
I had a couple of doubles there, sorry. The Kilo India 5, Yankee Station. Try it again, please.
Kilo India 5, Yankee Delta Victor, Ben, Edna, Texas.
Gotcha, Ben. Good evening. Glad to have you. And the other one was, I believe, a uniform Victor in your call?
November 0, leaving uniform Victor. November 0, leaving uniform Victor. David in Houston, Texas.
Gotcha. N0LUV. Love it, David. Just joking. That's a great call. Welcome. Okay. Any others like to check in? Late check in tonight. Come now.
Hi, Bravo, Bravo, Charlie, Kilo 5, Bravo, Bravo, Charlie, Brett, Missouri City.
This is Kilo Delta 2, Tango Victor Whiskey. Kilo Delta 2, Tango Victor Whiskey. Lane, Mobile, in Victoria.
This is Kilo Tango 5 Alpha Charlie. Kilo Tango 5 Alpha Charlie. The name is Amal Alpha Mike Alpha Lima in Katy. No traffic.
This is Kilo Delta 5 Romeo Charlie Hotel, Greg Yoakum, KD5 RCH.
Okay, well, I'll let that there. K5 BBC, Brett, KD2 TVW, Lane, KT5 Alpha Charlie, Amal, KD5 RCH. Rick, got you. Any others before we close the net?
This is November 5, Sierra Tango Alpha, Gary in West Houston.
November 5, Sierra Tango Alpha. Gary, got you. One more time.
Kilo Bravo.
And a Kilo Juliet 5 Bravo, but then you dropped out. Do you want to try it again? Let's see, line 32, Brenda, was November 5, Sierra Tango Alpha. That's Gary.
Sorry,
And the KJ5 Bravo call. Try one more time. Okay, well, nothing heard here. I want to thank everybody that participated in tonight's TechNet number 6 session. We had, looks like, about 35 check-ins and a great discussion. Again, thanks to Thomas, KF50MW, to providing that presentation on HF Digital Operations. It was awesome. I'd like to give a big thanks to the TechNet committee who helped make tonight's net a success. If you have any questions regarding our TechNet here at Crossroads, like to get involved, you can just go to our website, go to the Crossroads Ham Radio Club website at CRHRC.org, look for the TechNet, and you'll be glad to talk to you about it. We'd love to have you. And then, as always, it's become pretty fun here the last few months. We're going to sign off the RFNet and stay on Zoom for a little bit, so we'll do a Zoom right queue, as they say, so we'd love to have you to stay on Zoom. Again, I'll be closing this RF session of the monthly TechNet for Crossroads. This is K5LK, returning the link system back to normal amateur reviews. 73. Good night, all.